Welcome back to the Pursuit Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the programming language Go, and also taking a look at the way different people learn languages. Before we get started, a quick thank you to our sponsor, Neximo. Neximo provides APIs to let developers incorporate voice, SMS, verification, and a whole host of other interesting functionalities into their projects. To see more about what they're doing, visit neximo.com. Or to say thank you to the team that funds us, find them on Twitter at @NeximoDev. I'm your host, Jessica Rose. I'm here today with
Ashley McNamara, and I am a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft.
And Ashley, we're going to be talking about Go today.
That's correct.
So let's pretend that I've just landed in tech and I'm really excited and I want to get into development and I've never heard of Go before. What's sort of the elevator pitch for somebody who's never heard about Go?
Okay. Good question. Also, hard question to answer.
Oh.
Because I think that Go is great.
But
it's not a great introductory language, and it's just because there aren't a lot of introductory books out there. So if you are new to development and you want a language, I still consider Python the best language for new developers.
Okay. So let's say we're going to get into very, very fictional territory very quickly. Let's say that I am an incredibly good Python developer, because in this fictional world, we can make these things happen.
Right.
I say, hey, Ashley, I've heard that you're the person to ask about Go. What's the deal with Go?
So if you are an experienced Python developer and you are looking at Go, you are likely looking at Go because it's much faster.
Okay. That's what I was looking for.
Exactly. So the number one reason I think that people pick it up is for performance. There's some benchmarks out there. I can't validate how good they are, but Go is fast. And that's, I think, the number one reason why people come over. However, I haven't done the survey.
So I find benchmarking in tech, I don't care if it's programming languages or databases, I'm always really excited about benchmarking because it seems like whatever company or whatever community does the benchmarking, their stuff always wins.
Well, yeah, benchmarking is so biased.
It's very magical, isn't it?
It's super magical. It's all magic. All tech is magic.
So I'm a Python developer and I come to you and I say, hey, I want to use Go because filling in the blanks, I've been told in the past it's much, much faster. What kinds of things would you say, hey, if you're doing this or that or this other thing, maybe Go's worth looking into?
I mean, so what made me, I was a Python dev prior, and I say that loosely because, hey, y'all listening to the podcast, I have never been a professional developer. I'm just going to drop that bomb.
Oh.
I've never had a job as a professional developer. All of my projects have been either teaching moments for people. I came out of the boot camp and it was not a great experience. So I shifted my career to basically enabling people who were in my position.
So I'm going to politely argue with you because I love to get people on the air and then bicker with them.
Yes.
Yeah. So not a real developer or not a proper developer. I don't believe our dear listeners are aware of this, but I live to hunt down technologists in the wild and berate them every time they say, oh, I'm not a proper designer. I'm not proper. Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do.
I would say I am a proper developer, but
okay.
I have never had the job title of software developer. And I think that there are things that you learn with the job title as software developer that you don't learn as an enthusiast, right? So if I am telling somebody with the title software developer, here are the reasons why I think you should use Go, I can speak from a place of experience, but not a place of experience like in production, like if they're at work and they're selling this to their company, if that makes sense.
That sounds like a really reasonable approach to take and really honest. And that also means I don't really have a lot of room to fuss at you.
Right. I message people about the same thing, right? Like, oh, I'm new or I'm junior and I'm not a real developer. Yes, you are. You writing code? Is your code compiling? Is it running? You're a developer. Let's just call you a developer.
Oh, fantastic. Because you're over there in the US.
Yes.
And I'm Europe-based, so I think between the two of us, we can each bully a large portion of a continent.
I'm into it. Super into it.
And what kinds of challenges? So you've talked about wanting to be really honest about your experience working with this code and sort of being very gentle about recommending it, which I think is really, really refreshing. I meet so many technologists who are like, I love this thing, so let me hype it really hard.
Yeah.
It sounds like you might be also potentially willing to be really honest about when and how Go doesn't work. You've mentioned that it might not be a great first language. What are maybe some other signs that maybe Go's not going to fit right here?
Go is a rather new programming language. I think it just turned 7 in the land of programming. That's new. So
it's just now having to pay like full children's rates at the buffet.
Exactly. So all of the books out there that I've seen are like, you are a seasoned developer. You're looking at another language versus you are a brand new developer. And what you really should be reading are the kids' Python books.
Yeah.
I'm really advocating for like kids' Go books. I don't want to be the one to write it, but I might be the one to write it.
I love how you were really cautious around like, I don't want to do this thing, which would be the coolest thing ever and have great illustrations.
I will do the illustrations, but I don't want to write the content. I just feel like a book is a huge commitment, and I have problems with commitment.
And folks who've been listening to the podcast for a while, we've had a couple people come on and talk about writing books. We had Tracy Osborne way back in the dim mists of time, months ago, come on and talk about the challenges. It's really hard to write a book, and then it's a full-time job to publish and promote.
Yes, it's a lot of work. And, I have 2 kids and a job and a life.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we'll check back in 5-6 months and yeah.
Exactly.
See whether or not that happened.
Exactly.
So for folks less familiar with Go, we were kind of joking about the illustrations. There is something about Go that's kind of very, very cute and very, very kid-friendly.
Yeah, that Gopher is so cute. Renee French did an amazing job on the original Gopher, and I admire her so much for that. It's like the friendliest face. I mean, snakes aren't very friendly looking, so, it has a leg up on Python.
So we're going to have like a programming language mascot turf war.
Yeah, well, it's not really a war because the Gopher already won, so there's that.
I mean, looking at it in very biological terms, snakes. And if we've got a listener who's a new technologist, this might all seem a little bit baffling where we're talking about different kinds of mascots for programming languages, but that's pretty common, I think.
It is pretty common, and I think that it kind of draws people. I wasn't looking at Go. In fact, I started working with Go by pure accident. I was at OzCon in 2014, and I was at Community Leadership Summit, which Jono Bacon runs. And I met a guy named Steve Francia there, and he was like, "Oh, have you ever tried Go?" And I was like, "No, Python." And he was like, "You should try it." And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. No intentions on trying it whatsoever. And he was like, "Do you want a sticker?" "Yeah, sure, give me a sticker." And he had the little Gopher stickers. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cute, actually, pretty cute." And then he became like my relentless best friend. We are like actually best friends, and he would just bug me every day. "You got to try it. I'm like, "No, really? Okay, I said it to be nice. Hey, yeah, I'll try it. I didn't think we'd ever talk again, and this would not be an issue for me." And then he was like, "You have to do this workshop with me at OzCon next year." And I was like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I've never used this language." And he goes, "No, that's great, because I'm an expert in it, and I can't relate to the new people. So when you ask me questions as we're building the deck, it'll be better." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'm sold." So that's how I actually got into Go. And then the mascot kind of came later. I think it was Halloween. I was like, I'm just going to real quick make a Halloween illustration. It's going to be adorable.
Well, clearly.
And it's spiraled from there.
So, yeah, for folks who aren't on the programming side of tech or folks who are just getting into tech, this sounds almost like a missionary conversion style. Like, hi, have a pamphlet or a sticker,
Yes.
and I'm just going to show up and ring your doorbell until you're ready to hear the good word.
Yeah, it's funny. Steve is Mormon, so he does have practice in this.
Oh.
Sorry, Steve. I mean, just kidding. Everyone knows he's Mormon. But yeah, so he does have practice in this, and that's exactly what it was, actually. But that adorable little mascot was a huge seller. And not only that, the Go community is one of the best communities I have ever been a part of, ever. And so that's what keeps me there.
But that's you personally, not like best out there ready to start a fight.
Yes. Yes, exactly. We all love our communities. I'm not going to start a community fight.
Cool.
Best for me personally.
There we go. That's very diplomatic, very easy.
Yes.
So you talked about the lack of introductory level materials that exist today, but also wanting to write a kid's book. Do you think that with more accessible materials, this could be a more beginner-friendly language?
I think so. I still consider myself like a baby Go dev. I'm still learning like all the ins and outs. I don't want to say I'm an expert, although I think some people might consider me one just because of how involved I am in the Go community. So sorry, y'all, not an expert, still learning. But for Python, it was really easy for me to get started. You have Learn Python the Hard Way by Zed Shaw. I've done that book. I can't even count. I've done it countless times. There's nothing like that for Go right now. The children's books, I'm not kidding. I actually read children's programming books. I think they are an amazing way to pick up a new language, and almost every language has them except for Go.
So I want to dig down in a little bit deeper into this because this is really interesting. I don't spend as much time with children as I should. There's a whole genre, it sounds like, of kids programming books that I'm missing out on.
There really is. Python has a number of them. Java has a number of them. All of the front end stuff I think is really easy to compile into a kid's book because you can build something that you can see right now. Like, let's build a cute game or a cute website. So they all have it. Ruby has kids books. I mean, they're everywhere, and I love them. I do them with my kids. So it gives me an excuse to buy them. Like, it's not for me, it's for my kid. It's really for me. So I do them with my kids. Sometimes I don't do them with my kids.
You're like, all right, this time this book's for mommy.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm really interested in these books and the role they play, not just in the life you have working with your kids and exposing them to technology, but you said that you use them yourself. This is really interesting to me as a human language learner. When I first moved to Japan, I used workbooks for elementary school students to teach myself basic literacy. And it was so important. I don't think I'd ever thought about the value of having sort of these materials that I often see human language learners using available for technical learners.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's very much the same as learning a new spoken language, right? And so it was very valuable to me as I was learning, because what I wanted somebody to do was explain like I'm 5.
Yeah.
And instead of me having to, ask on Twitter, explain like I'm 5, not that I embarrass easy, but in technology, a place where you're supposed to have it together all the time and presentations are overly technical because it's not really for your audience, it's for you to show how smart you are.
Yes. Oh, it's a thing, isn't it?
It sure is a thing. And so, the people that you want to learn from, these experts in your field, are always like way above your head. And I'm like, can you just explain like I'm 5? And there's books that do that for you. Explain like I'm 5.
Yeah. And I think that touches on a really, really interesting point. And it touches on maybe quite a bit of gatekeeping that I see in different technical communities.
Right.
When you get the opportunity to take the mic or get on stage and you're like, hi, I'm going to show all of you how smart I am.
Yes.
Good luck getting some value out of that.
Right. And some people do, right? Like some people are as advanced or, understand all of the acronyms, and they're like, oh yeah, this was really valuable. I learned something. I think that there's an audience for everyone, but I think that in tech, we focus so much on those senior developers and not enough on those junior developers. And for me, my passion lies with the junior developers. They are our future. Let's enable them. Let's give them the tools that they need. And let's just put our egos aside for a second. It's okay.
I think this might be a really business savvy approach as well. So your role involves a lot of community outreach. You get paid to go help people. Focusing on junior developers, there's a lot more of them.
There is.
And these are folks who are going to be around. They are our future, I hope.
Yeah, I think so too. Yes. So it's definitely part of my job. And selfishly, there are more of them. And then also it enables me to continue learning as well at a comfortable pace. You know, there's some motivation there as well, because I'm almost 40 years old, and I've only been in the tech industry for not even 10 years yet. So I feel like I'm constantly underwater learning wise, which is fine because I love to learn. But if I'm out there and my focus is only highly technical information, I feel like I get to focus on way less. And I want to learn about containers, and I want to learn Go, and I want to learn Kubernetes. I want to learn all the things. And I'm like, I can't have such a narrow focus right now.
That makes sense. Sort of a do all the thing comics.
Do all the things. Yes. I want to do all the things, but I also, the boot camp experience was so terrible that I also don't want that for anyone else ever. You can do by yourself way better than you can do like in any boot camp. I think that they're predatory. You can print that.
I'd love to dive into this a little bit more. I've got a lot of boot camp opinions.
We both do.
So full disclosure, I sent my husband away to one, which sounds a bit like sending a child to summer camp, but it's a bit more complex. But he went up to the only boot camp I found in the world that has a government educational accreditation.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a boot camp up in Scotland where you come and you do your, oh no, he's going to listen to this and fuss at me. Your 18 weeks, your mumble weeks. And then you could do an extra assessment to get sort of the Scottish equivalent, almost of an associate's degree. Yeah, an HND, a foundation degree. It's sort of the equivalent of 2/3 of an HND.
Oh, that's really interesting.
But I do think that without any oversight and without anyone sort of auditing the claims, have you seen the boot camp success story pages? Sign up now and give me $10,000 and you could make $90,000 in 3 months.
Yeah, I love those. I think that I understand why people do boot camps.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't really know where to get started. And, for all the same reasons that I did, I'm like, oh, I need a classroom environment to stay motivated. I need other people helping me. I don't know where to start. People just say, start coding is a really crappy answer to give somebody who doesn't know where to start.
Right.
I think it's the worst.
I've done a couple tutorials. I'm ready to learn more. Oh, well, you just need to find a project you're passionate about and build it.
Exactly. I despise that answer. And I think that answer is what drives people to boot camps, is because they want that classroom structure, right? They want somebody to be like, go build this.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I signed up for a 3-month boot camp, and I, moved out of my house and got an apartment in the city and dedicated full time to this boot camp, 18 hours a day, just in it. My advantage was that my ex-husband was already in the industry. So I was already kind of ingrained within open source culture. And I was helping with docs and OpenStack, and I was doing some front end stuff with OpenShift. So I already kind of knew people and knew the culture and knew what was kind of expected from developers. So when I got there, was definitely the oldest person there. No, I wasn't the oldest person. There was one person older than me, and she's great. Erica Joy was in my class as well.
Was she?
Erica, sorry. Erica is young. I am young. This boot camp was essentially robbery. It was essentially robbery. And so I was asking questions like, hey, do we need to know Git, Garrett, Jenkins? Do we need to contribute to open source? You know, I know that's a good way to build your resume. And they're like, nope, you don't need to know any of those things. None of those things are relevant. And I'm like, you're lying. So I spent $15,000 for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, they say,
wow, wait, hang on, back up. So you had to go and get $15,000. And for folks who are like well-heeled and terribly fancy in tech, that probably doesn't seem like a big jump, but that's a huge amount of money, isn't it?
It is a huge, that's a nice car. It's a nice-ish car. Like, that's a lot of money.
That is a down payment outside the city.
Exactly. That's a grip of money. It's a lot of money. And so I took it very seriously, and I had expectations about what would happen when I left that experience. You know, I didn't expect to leave calling myself a seasoned software developer, but I expected to leave with some sort of base knowledge. And I left with base knowledge, but not because of the boot camp. It was because of the hours I spent afterwards with people like Zed Shah, who lived in San Francisco at the time. And he was like, come over to my house on the weekends. And it was because I had those community connections already that I was successful. I had a job offer outside of the boot camp. These success stories about boot camps bother me because they have partnerships with companies where this company will pay them $20,000 on the hire, right?
Yeah.
And I think that most companies have great intentions. They're like, we're going to mentor this person, but then they kind of don't. So when you get there, you need to hit the ground running. And unless you already have a CS degree, you're not hitting the ground running out of a boot camp. You're just not. So when people are looking at these success stories, they have hope. They're like, oh, like I'm a waiter, or I'm a photographer, or I'm like a lonely sysadmin, and I'm like new to this. I'm like help desk, whatever, and it's guaranteed $100,000. Maybe you get a job, maybe you do, but then in 6 months you get laid off because you can't keep up. And so I always tell people, when you're researching boot camps, ask about retention rates, and if they say they don't measure it, run.
This is fantastic advice. So your first advice is maybe be a little bit suspicious of the concept overall.
Yes.
And the follow-up is ask the kinds of questions you would ask, or ask the kinds of questions you'd want to see data for if you were researching a graduate school or a university.
Exactly.
Hey, how many people are in work in 3 months? How many people are continuous employed after a year? What's the earning potential like after 5 years?
Yes.
How many people show up angry on your porch with pitchforks?
Exactly. And, like after the program, is there continued education for me for free? Do I have a community of mentors available to me? Is there an interview prep class? Because that's kind of a big deal when you're just out of a boot camp and you're not even junior developer status at that point. You just kind of know some things. And now you're getting ready to be thrust into a technical interview. It's terrifying.
It's hard work, isn't it? And these are things that you've got, 16, 17, 18 weeks. Some of them are quite a bit shorter.
Yes.
That you're going to learn. I'm always very suspicious of the ones that say, become a JavaScript developer in 16 weeks, or become a...
Yeah.
You're kind of getting the skills you need to get into your first job and learn to be a developer.
Exactly. And what you need is a company to be like, listen, we know you're way junior, so we're going to pair you with somebody. And for the first 6 months, this is your buddy, and you are looking at every line of code that they're writing, and you're able to ask questions. And you need to have a buddy that understands that you're going to ask a lot of really not so smart questions. I don't want to say dumb questions, but, like some really obvious questions. And they need to be okay with that. But there's not a lot of companies that offer that level of mentorship.
Oh, I've never been more relieved. The role I'm in now, I manage a team, and we do hire very, very junior devs, sometimes out of boot camps or sometimes self-taught. And we do pair them with a mentor continuously for 3 months or more if they need it. And it's been a really valuable tool.
It's so valuable, and I wish that more companies would do it, because I do believe in giving these boot campers a chance. I mentor lots of people that come from boot camps. More than half of my class are not software developers.
Okay, so they just didn't say.
I want to say that there's 4 out of a class of almost 40 women that are software developers.
Wow.
4. And then the class sizes kept getting bigger and bigger, and that's how you know it's a money-making operation, right? I just feel like it's so predatory.
And you talked about how valuable it is for newbies, for folks just coming in to get that extra support. I think what's often overlooked is how valuable that can be for the person mentoring them or the person helping them develop that skill.
Yes, definitely. And just like Steve, when he asked me to teach that workshop with him, that was something that he recognized. He said, hey, listen, I've been doing this for too long. I can't think like a beginner. And the questions that I asked him during the process of building this workshop are questions that didn't occur to him, and also questions that he didn't always know the answer to. So he was having to research things to get me the answers, right? And so it also helped him learn. We don't always have the answer, right? Or we don't have the answer in a way that we can explain to somebody that's new, right? So when you have to break it down to explain it to somebody who's really new, you understand the concepts better.
If you can't explain it to me like I'm 5, do you really know what you're talking about?
Exactly.
I've got a couple questions that have come through on social media that folks are just dying to ask you. And we don't record live, so they're going to probably have to wait a week or 2 before they get the satisfaction of hearing your answers. If you, dear listener, want to yell at me and tell me what to ask future guests, you can find us on Twitter at @PursuitPod. So I've got someone asking, and I've got Emmanuel asking, who's just such a lovely boy. And he's asking, what kind of advice would you give yourself 2 years ago or even a year ago?
Oh, goodness. Good question. 2 years ago, me.
If you want, he's got kind of a jokey one to ask you too, if you want to stall for a minute.
I do want to stall for a minute.
Fantastic. You're going to love the other question, because it's, what's your favorite desktop environment?
Ooh,
You feeling some contractual obligations, eh?
no, I'm not.
That's very Microsoft of 8-9 years ago, though, that reputation, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, fun fact, most of our team, we use Mac. Microsoft doesn't require you to use a Windows machine.
And that's something I've seen in the wild at conferences. There'll be, let's be honest, usually dev advocates from your team, because you all seem to be everywhere doing everything.
Yeah.
But somebody seems to always come back between talks or at a break and be like, ha, 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 you got a Windows machine.
All the time. When I got hired, it was kind of like the burn that everyone came back with. Like, oh, I hope you like your Windows machine. Don't have one.
Yeah. Your favorite desktop environment is Linux.
Yes.
Which is totally legit working for Microsoft these days. So now that we've stalled, yeah, what kind of, it doesn't have to be 2 years ago. It doesn't have to be a year ago. If you could look back at yourself in the past, aside from boot camps,
yeah.
what other advice would you give yourself?
Always be learning. I've had an advantage by having a loved one that was in tech. Before my ex-husband, it was my dad. So, I was able to kind of see burnout cycles live. And so I'm like, here are the things I know I don't want to do. I know I'm never going to work 18-hour days again, outside of my boot camp experience. I know what the burnout cycle looks like. So, you're not going to catch me checking my email after 5 ever.
Yeah.
So I had already set up pretty great boundaries for myself as I entered this industry. And so I had an advantage there by seeing people make mistakes in real time. I would say that if I could give myself some advice, it would be to never stop learning. I have currently blocked out the first 2 hours of every weekday morning from 9 to 11, and that's set aside for learning. Sometimes life gets overwhelming, and that's the time that I skip. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I haven't written any code in like a month, and I'm going to look like such a noob when I'm doing a demo, and that sucks. But I also don't embarrass easy, so I'm okay with looking like a noob.
I think that's pretty far-reaching advice too. Yeah. Spend a lot of time getting used to learning. Maybe make peace with the fact that you're never going to feel like you know it all.
Yes, definitely.
And then just get used to feeling goofy or get used to, being willing to look a little bit silly.
There are very few Jess Frizzells in the world. Jess is one of the smartest people I know, if not the smartest person that I know. And I know that she works hard, but it looks like everything comes so easy to her. I know it doesn't. But there are very few people that are that smart in the world. I'm not one of them. So I need my every 2 hours in the morning. Otherwise, I feel overwhelmed. And so advice I would give myself is never give up that 2 hours. Continue with it, because I'm never going to be the person that it just comes naturally to, if that makes sense.
I think, expecting it to come naturally might be a little bit of a cheat.
Mm-hmm, yeah, definitely.
I know so many brilliant people, and I know so many people that work hard.
We all work hard.
Yeah, real genius seems to happen somewhere in the delta between these.
Yeah, I mean, there are some where they're like on the spectrum and all of the math just makes sense, right? But most people, we have to work hard. And if you're going to be in tech, you have to continue learning. And what I tell people when they're coming into the industry and they don't know, if you want to go to a boot camp because you think that that's you're in and you're going to get a job and everything's going to be great, and you don't think that you can do it by yourself, you're probably not going to make it, because 90% of this work is figuring it out by yourself.
This is all very fantastic advice. If somebody wanted more good advice from you, where could they find you on the internet without stalking you or being creepy?
At Ashley McNamara on Twitter, and then Facebook, and then LinkedIn is the same. And then email is ashleymcnamara1@gmail. You can reach me all the ways. I'm pretty open.
I'm just going to send you emoji across every medium.
Yes.
Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to keep up with what we're doing at the Pursuit Podcast, you can find us on Twitter @PursuitPod. Please do join us again on Thursday for a brand new episode.